Friends, I am Dr. Samrat Jankar, a Marrow Super Specialty Surgical Gastro faculty. Here today with a video of recall based questions of recent INSS CET of Surgical Gastroenterology. Friends, I am very happy to tell you many of the questions has been directly from our video based series, and few of the questions where it has been explained by the faculty in our videos. So today we will see few of the questions which we got from our students. Question framing may be a different, or question whatever has been given choices may be little bit different. Here intention is to collect those questions and try to figure out what topic has been asked, what is a pattern, maybe which can be helpful for further upcoming exams. Let's start the recall based questions. The image of anatomy of anal canal was given and internal sphincter was marked and asked to identify. This was a question was there. They have given the anatomy of the anal canal and they have pointed towards the internal sphincter and they try to ask. Let's see what is the anatomy of the anal canal. Anal canal, there is a circular muscle which continue as an internal sphincter, and outside longitudinal muscle that will become a conjoint longitudinal muscle of internal anal canal, and there is a levator which continue as an external sphincter. This is a routine anatomy, and outside there is a ischioanal fossa will be there. Ischioanal fossa will be there, and they have marked to the internal sphincter as per the recall. They have marked to the internal sphincter. If they are marked to the conjoint tendon, that is a continuation of the longitudinal muscle of the rectum. This will be the in between internal and external sphincter. Next question was, they have given anal manometry finding, resting pressure 40, squeeze pressure 80. What to do next? The question I felt is not complete has been asked. It might be a constipation case or case scenario might have been given, and they have given the pressures. As we have learnt, resting pressure and squeeze pressure. Resting pressure is nothing but internal sphincter pressure, and squeeze pressure is nothing but external sphincter pressure. 40 is a normal, 80 squeeze pressure is normal. When the pressure in the internal and external sphincter is normal, then we feel that it is not related to obstruction defecation syndrome. As per this chart which we have explained, if we have done anal manometry and sphincters pressures are normal, then next option will be colonic transit need to be done. Surgery definitely not at all option. If at all we feel that it is obstruction defecation syndrome, then we need a biofeedback, and also we need further to decide whether need of surgery is there or not. If pressures are normal, then if it is not obstruction defecation syndrome, next option should be we should evaluate in the form of colon transit. Is it a slow transit or is it a delayed transit, and accordingly slow transit or normal transit, accordingly we need to decide further. Rectal prolapse in a 5-year-old with mucosa only. We know that rectal prolapse in a children with mucosal only prolapse is a injection sclerotherapy is a better option. Attenuated FAP, what is a false? Predilection towards the desmoid? Yes, attenuated FAP has a more of desmoid disease. Presentation of cancer is around 54. It is a delayed presentation of cancer. More on the right side, it's true. Increased risk of upper GI polyposis, it's exactly not. This we have seen risk of colorectal cancer in FAP is attenuated FAP is 70%. The germline mutation is 10%. Median age for colorectal cancer, that 59 they have given, it is a 58-year age. Mutation is 3' end mutation will be there. Number of polyp are less than 100, and more on the right side there is a predilection for severe desmoid disease which has been clearly mentioned in Shackelford's, and surveillance should start in 18 to 20 years. So the upper GI polyposis risk increase, it's not right. This has been explained in our video. Desmoid tumor all are true except female sex risk factor, it's true. Surgical trauma is a risk factor, it's true. Extraintestinal manifestation of desmoid is true. The 5' end mutation is a risk factor, not. It is a 3' is manifestation will be patient with mutation at 3' prime tends to have more severe disease. Female sex is twice as of male. Family history of desmoid is a risk factor predicting the desmoid disease. Extracolonic manifestations such as Gardner syndrome, epidermoid cyst, osteoma, extra teeth has a more severe risk manifestation. Desmoid tumor, all are true. Female sex is high risk. Surgical tumor is risk. Extraintestinal manifestation of Gardner's is risk. But it is a 3' mutation of 3' is a more prediction of severity of the desmoid. It's not 5'. This has been explained in our video. Colorectal cancer with favorable prognosis. We know that the MSI-L is a sporadic. MSI-L is sporadic. BRAF and MSI stable is sporadic. MSI-H is for high MSI. High MSI means the patient is HNPCC. HNPCC we know very common. These are the poorly differentiated but had a very good prognosis is good. The favorable prognosis is seen when MSI is high. T2N0 colon cancer. T2N0 colon cancer is a stage 1. There is no need of adjuvant therapy. This also has been explained. We have seen that algorithm for adjuvant chemotherapy in colorectal cancer. We have seen if it is a T2N0 means stage 1. There is nothing is needed, no chemotherapy is needed. If it is a stage 3, it is very much clear that we need adjuvant chemotherapy in the form of FOLFOX. It may be 3 months or 6 months. In stage 2 is a tricky where if we are having high risk, there is a perforation, obstruction or neural involvement, lymphovascular involvement is there. High risk group, there is no doubt we need to give a chemotherapy, but it might be a dual drug chemotherapy. Low risk group where there is no 8 factor we have been mentioned about the high risk. If there is no high risk factor, then it depends upon the MSI. If MSI high, it is a favorable, no need of chemotherapy. MSI low or MSI stable, definitely we need a chemotherapy. It may be a single drug. This has been explained in our video. Rectal cancer 8 cm from anal verge. Perirectal fat pad lymph node involvement means it is a T3N plus disease. In those patient want sphincter sparing surgery, yes, it's 8 cm above the 4 cm. If we are able to give a margin of 1 or 2 cm depending upon the where tumor is, we can give option of sphincter preserving surgery. Definitely. If patient wants sphincter preserving means this option is out. APR is sphincter cutting option. Now question coming is, should we go directly surgery or should we go some chemo RT and followed by surgery? If the patient is having nodal disease, if patient is having perirectal fat involvement, as per NCCN which we follow in standard book, LAR direct surgery is not option. Now coming to in between two, NACT LAR or NACT transannal excision. If the patient is having T1 disease, so we can consider transannal excision. If it is a T3 disease, transannal excision doesn't going to become. So this is also wrong. So option left is NACT, neoadjuvant chemo RT followed by LAR. So patient 8 cm from anal verge wants sphincter preserving surgery. APR is non-sphincter preserving surgery. And patient is having perirectal fat and lymph node involvement. No question about direct surgery. It's perirectal fat involvement, no question of the transannal excision. So left is neoadjuvant chemo RT with LAR, low anterior section or ultra low anterior section may be the better option for this patient. This has been explained in our video. 30-year woman with polyperative anal growth 8 cm from anal verge, extension into perirectal fat, HP is adenocarcinoma and want to preserve her sphincter. Option is APR is sphincter cutting surgery, LAR is a sphincter preserving. So here rest option they are not able to recall. So LAR is a better option. But more better option will be chemo RT, long course chemo RT followed by LAR is a better option for this kind of cases. AR, anti-resection done patient post-op day 3 develop breathlessness, fever associated with leukocytosis, bilateral lung involvement and hazy lung. It is more of atelectasis. Long-term surgery and having all these things are more in favor of atelectasis, as there is a fever is there, leukocytosis is there, it is more of atelectasis. Extralevator ELAP, which one is a true, is levator is dissected from the mesentery node, total levator excision with rectum and anal canal, that's true. Sacrum is also resected, not, sacrum is not resected in ELAP. Perineal resection done in prone jackknife position, it's prone jackknife or even it can be done in lithotomy, that is not, this is more, levator is excised with along with anal canal and rectum. Standard APR versus extralevator APR, what is the main difference? Standard APR is we have cone specimen, we will preserve the pelvic floor. This will be the pelvic floor and this will be the rectum. What in standard APR we do? We come here and we go. This is one is a cone specimen. What in extralevator APR we do? We go and we take levator completely. That is extralevator APR. So in specimen is wasted in case of the standard APR. If we take extralevator or extended APR, in this wide transection of levator is performed, complete wide transection of levator we perform, and specimen is more of cylindrical and cup of the levator will be there with the specimen. So it is a more better and tumor positivity will be less and better specimen we can resect. This has been explained in our video. Haber-Gamma protocol, we know that it is nothing but in a patient with T3 disease or T3N plus disease, we give standard chemo-RT, neoadjuvant chemo-RT we give to the patient, and we feel that after 6 weeks tumor is not there, clinical radiological endoscopy, this patient we keep, this is a good responder, we keep on follow-up and we wait and watch. This is a wait and watch policy which has been, Angelina Haber-Gamma has proposed this therapy and it has been followed up in a patient who has very good response. So this has been explained very well. If it is a local long chemo-RT we have given, standard practice what we do, irrespective of whatever is there, we do TME surgery. But what wait and watch policy or Haber-Gamma policy they tell is, we assess anyhow 6 to 8 weeks, we assess after chemo-RT of last dose, we assess the response, If suppose response is complete response, that patient, or incomplete response, that what we take. Incomplete, we go for surgery because there is no meaning of waiting, tumor is there. If there is a complete clinical response, decide based on the clinical examination, endoscopy and MRI, radiology. If complete clinical response is there, patient will be enrolled for wait and watch or Haber-Gamma principle. And those patient, if there is continuous follow-up, if there is recurrence, goes to TME. If there is no recurrence, patient will continue wait and watch policy. So this is standard treatment nowadays. It has been well explained in our video. Identify the pathology they have given. Actually what they told is they have given scalloping of the liver with ascites, that is a pseudomyxoma peritonei. Percentage of peritoneal rent or peritoneal laceration in TP. TP is totally extraperitoneal hernia repair for inguinal hernia. In that what has been mentioned is tear, peritoneal tear in TP. It is one of the important problem comes in TP is if the peritoneum get rent, air will escape into the abdomen, and if abdomen air goes, it will be difficult to maintain your extraperitoneal space. So incidence of peritoneal tear has been seen from 10 to 47%. 13% of the peritoneal tear in TEP are large enough, need closure, account for conversion of TAPP or open repair. That has been mentioned. So if we want percentage of peritoneal tear, it almost ranges to 10 to 50%. And 13% of peritoneal tears are really significant, which need conversion to TAPP or closure of the rent or may need a open surgery. Intraoperative cholangiogram shows CBD stone of CBD 5 mm in diameter. If intraoperative cholangiogram, if we see CBD stone, the option is Intraoperative ERCP, post-operative ERCP, if you have seen intraoperatively, it should not be post-operative, it should not be expectant management. So either CBD exploration or intraoperative ERCP, better option will be explore the CBD, put transcystic guided catheter, explore the CBD and remove the stone will be better option. Pancreatic resection procedure for chronic pancreatitis, all except which one is a false. Fraze procedure involves resection of head. It's not. It is a coring of head. It is not resection of head. Burns procedure is resection of head but no resection of neck. So it is true. Beggar's procedure is resection of head with uncinate process. It is true. Pain relief with Beggar's procedure better than classical pancreaticoduodenostomy. It is also true because Beggar's we involve the head resection and uncinate resection. It is true. So which one is the false? Is Fraze procedure involve resection of head? It is not resection of head. It is coring of head. Yearly incidence of CA gallbladder, they have asked. What has been mentioned in Shackelford is US incidence is 1 to 2 per lakh, and in India it is 22 per lakh in a woman of Delhi. In India it is 22 for Indians and 1 to 2%. The options they have not given, but incidence as per the book it is 1 to 2 per lakh in US, and in our Indian setup it is 22 per lakh in a Delhi. CA gallbladder lymph node dissection is not related with survival benefit. It is false. Extensive hepatic resection compared to minimal adds the morbidity. Extensive hepatic resection if we do, then morbidity will be there. It is true. Lymph node dissection not related with cervical benefit in CA gallbladder. In fact, in CA gallbladder, if we take a radical lymphadenectomy we do, it will add the survival benefit. This is wrong. True about the pancreatic NET, insulinoma, 10% insulinoma are malignant and 10% insulinoma are associated with Men's syndrome. In Men's syndrome, insulinoma associated with not 10%, it is a 5%. It has been explained in our video. Necrolytic erythema migrans, insulinoma, glucagonoma, VIP-oma, somatostatinoma. It is more commonly associated with glucagonoma. In glucagonoma, it is a 4D, that is diabetes, dermatitis, deep vein thrombosis, depression. That is very common mnemonic: diabetes, dermatitis, deep vein thrombosis, depression. For hepatectomy, preoperative biliary drainage involved lobe can be done for the patient with deep jaundice. If patient is having high level of bilirubin, preoperative biliary drainage should be done. It should be done. Preferably, it should be done from FLR. Creping pad dissection, it is done in case of IPMN, not in hilar cholangio. Contraindication of TIPS, this is also well explained and there was a slide on that. What they are asking is contraindication, absolute contraindication. CCF, multiple cyst, unrevealed jaundice are absolute contraindication. Hepatic thrombosis is also a contraindication, but it is relative contraindication. So absolute contraindication, CCF, multiple hepatic cyst and unrelieved biliary obstruction, jaundice are absolute contraindication, and hepatic vein thrombosis is relative contraindication. Portal vein thrombosis is relative contraindication. One is about portal vein embolization is required. The future liver volume versus total liver volume 50, that FLR is 40 to 50% steatosis is required, which will be okay, and fibrotic liver of Hep B is 42, means cirrhotic liver 40 to 50% is acceptable. Normal liver less than 30% is acceptable, but child pug A ICG in a 15-minute retain 20%, less than 20% is 10% is okay, but if it is 20% retention means we need to do portal vein embolization in the patient, even if it is a child cirrhosis A. Graft placement between the superior mesenteric vein and IVC, it is a mesocaval graft which will be based on the left renal vein. Sequence of anastomosis in orthoptic liver transplantation, the portal vein, hepatic vein, portal vein, artery and duct. It is a posterior most first, that is hepatic vein followed by portal vein, artery and duct. This is not true. It is hepatic vein followed by portal vein followed by artery and duct. Contraindication of right living donor transplant, right sectoral duct draining into the left and right portal vein branches arising from the left portal vein from intrahepatically trifurcation. If it is a left portal vein, intrahepatically they are having right portal branches, this is a absolute contraindication because we can't get the transition zone, and also it is not going to be easy for re-anastomosing. So this is absolutely contraindicated. This is not the absolute contraindicated. Which of the following false regarding esophageal and pharyngeal musculature? The point of transition of circular muscle proximally known as lemmer area. The pharynx has a single consecutive layer of muscle. No, esophagus and pharynx both have double consecutive layers. Collar of helveticus is a circular muscle to oblique muscle on the greater curvature of the stomach. It is there at the G junction. Both layer of esophagus has only smooth muscle below the carina. That is true. So single layer, pharynx single layer is absolutely not right. As per this 4 MCQ, this will be the answer. This is false statement. A case of dyspepsia, upper GI endoscopy biopsy revealed malt, low graded malt. What should be the next line of management? Low graded malt, it is better to treat with antibiotic for H. pylori will be the better option. Surgery directly should not be, chemotherapy not an option, surgery plus chemotherapy, it is antibiotic is the answer. It has been well explained in our video. Bleeding duodenal ulcer management, which one is true? Transfusion of blood until 9, that is not true. Transfusion until 9 is not going to be. Black dot indicate prior high risk of bleeding is cherry red spot. Failure of endoscopy need immediate surgical intervention in bleeding duodenal ulcer, it is good. Truncal vagotomy may be done after controlling bleeding, it can be done. Out of which, if the endoscopy fails, endoscopy failure, going for surgery is more appropriate answer. So appropriate answer if you ask, this C will be the better answer. It has been well explained in our video. G junction bleeding ulcer worst procedure. Sindis, Pouchet's and Kelling-Mendler's and total gastrectomy. Kelling-Mendler is a procedure where the proximal ulcer we do the antrectomy. So this is not going to take care of the bleeding. So this is the worst procedure to be done for bleeding G junction ulcers. This is not going to deal with the pathology. It is going to be a palliative at the distal end. So this is a worst procedure. It has been well explained in our video. Aortoduodenal fistula, false statement. Secondary aortoduodenal fistula are more common. Yeah, true. Primary because of atherosclerotic developing aortoduodenal fistula, rather than post-surgical because of infection. There is a fistula between the aorta and duodenum is more common. When suspecting aortoenteric fistula, OGD is a first line. Yeah, OGD scopy will detect more possible where is a bleeding has happened, where is actually in a hemodynamically stable patient. It can be a first line we can identify. Most commonly affect distal duodenum. Yeah, true. Third and fourth part of the duodenum are most commonly affected. MRI is an investigation or imaging of choice? No, CT is an imaging of choice. If a CT endoscopy is not able to visualize, CT is an important. CT angiography, CT arterography will be the more better imaging than the MRI. Pharyngoesophageal corrosive injury, which one is a false? Colon is used as a conduit exclusively most of the time. When we want very high up anastomosis, stomach may not reach, colon will be the better option and which will be exclusively which can be used. Reflux aspiration may need a tracheostomy if it is a very high. The aspiration is a chances are more than tracheostomy is a part of the reconstruction. Supercharged reverse gastric tube with anastomosis to superior thyroid artery and vein used for diffuse laryngeal stenosis. It is inferior artery and thyroid we use. Supercharged reverse gastric tube will be used with inferior, not superior thyroid vein and artery. Difficulty in speaking and rolling will happen if it is a pharyngoesophageal corrosive injury. It has been well explained in our video. Conduit of esophagus, which of the following is false? Right is adequate for the reconstruction length, that is true. Left colon is more reliable of blood supply, that is true. Right colon used advantage is preventing regurgitation if we are using with IC valve, that is true. Left colon has advantage of appropriate diameter, no. Right colon is more appropriate conduit as a diameter wise. It has been well explained in our video. Pharyngeal anastomotic stricture investigation, barium should not be used, aspiration risk will be high. Direct nasopharyngoscopy or laryngoscopy is a better investigation for pharyngeal anastomotic stricture. Gastrinoma, serotonin receptor scintigraphy, that is a better investigation, most sensitive investigation. SRS scintigraphy is a better investigation or most sensitive investigation in gastrinoma. It has been well explained in our video. Splenic node station in case of gastric cancer, which is a 10th node, 9 is a celiac axis node, 10 is a splenic or hilum, or splenic region node, 11 is a splenic artery node, and 12 is a SDL. Splenic node is 10 is a splenic node. It has been well explained in our video. Day 5 of intrathoracic anastomosis, Ivor Lewis has been done, esophageal gastric anastomosis is done. Patient has fever and leukocytosis, you are suspecting a leak is suspected. Correct statement. Initial contrast is gastrographin, yes, gastrographin, chest friendly in chest. If we are having leak, gastrographin doesn't cause that much of chemical pneumonitis. If it is a barium, which will cause more chemical pneumonitis. Light barium is a better than water soluble. The first initial contrast, if we ask, gastrographin is a better, but afterward if we are not able to fix it, then we can use a barium. This will be the more better answer as compared to this. Barium has a risk of pneumonia, yes, true. Barium identify better leak, so initial contrast of choice is barium. No, absolutely this is not right. So if we are asking more correct statement, this will be the more correct statement. Initial contrast is gastrographin. Cross regime preoperative chemo-RT versus surgery alone for adeno. Preoperative chemo-RT surgery alone for adenoesophagus. Preoperative RT versus surgery. It is a chemo-RT versus surgery. It is not only RT, and it is not only adeno, it is a squamous and adeno. So B option will be the more correct for the cross regime in case of CA esophagus. It has been well explained in our video. Hunter's ligature is used for mainly popliteal aneurysm. First surgeon to receive Nobel Prize is Koches. Theodos Koches is the first surgeon to receive a Nobel for the surgeon. First surgeon is Theodore Koches. Thank you.